Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick, and today I would like to talk about some aspects of mental health in the times of isolation. And with this video, basically, I want to try to give you some insight into the function of some of the emotions we might experience, so you can develop ways to basically lower your levels of anxiety. The emotions I'm going to talk about are mainly boredom, loneliness, and anxiety itself, and all is geared towards lowering the level of anxiety. Why am I making this video? At the beginning of March, the World Health Organization released a statement on mental health aspects during isolation, and there are a lot of tips on what you should do and what you could do in those times. But from my point of view, it doesn't really go into the depth of why, because it's a statement. Looking back on the last month, this video really has been like a group effort and went through several stages to get to this point, so it's not really just myself, but I mention all this because I studied philosophy and psychology, so I have just an overview of the topics, but I'm not a psychologist. So I got two friends of mine who helped me out with their input and their points of view from what's happening and what people are needing, and as well commenting on the script. So very much thankful for that input, as well as the people from the Euro Youth Mental Health Organization. So very thankful for their input, which made me aware of some of the biases I have. Terminology time with Patrick. Last month we started with the assumption that this will be over in 2 weeks. Surprise, it's not. And it's based on the assumption now that it will take more than 2 weeks still in the future. How long? I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. There are different models which really depend on how the situation develops. Like, keep that in mind. This video is made under the assumption that we're going to stay at home and inside for a longer period of time than expected, and that's all I want to give for the time frame. Terminology time with Patrick. One important thing for the terminology when we talk about isolation is that social isolation and social distancing, what we are actually meaning is physical distancing. Because right now, if we are in isolation, we are not cut off from our peer group, like we are not outcasts from society. Like there's nothing we did wrong in that situation, that like our society basically isolates us to keep us away from everybody. It's just voluntary isolation in the sense that I am alone in my room, but I am not isolated because I still have access and contact with everyone. So it's just to keep that in mind when I'm talking about isolation now. What we are really meaning is physical distancing, because the connections are still there, and we have a lot of ways to counterbalance that feeling of isolation. Coffee. Terminology time with Patrick. Patrick, what is an emotion? I had an emotion once. Please tell me, what is an emotion? An emotion you could define from the literature basically as a heuristic that gives the individual a specific action tendency towards a situation. Basically, it's a rule of thumb. If we get in a dangerous situation, if we walk alone at night through a dark alley and someone is behind the corner, I'm feeling afraid. So I run away or try to fight it. It's the basic baseline of telling us how to react to unknown situations that we haven't been in before. The main problem we have now in our situation is that some of the emotions that are usually there to help us in our situation are basically in a wrong context. So that's why I make this video, to really get you through these emotions of boredom, loneliness, and anxiety, which normally help us in those situations, but because of the circumstances, the external circumstances, are not really helpful in that situation, can lead us in a wrong, different direction. That up front. Terminology time with Patrick. Patrick, what is boredom? I'm feeling so bored at home, I don't know what to do. I'm so bored. Ooh. Is that really necessary in a video when I talk about mental health? I don't know. It's just... We could define boredom as a meaning regulation process. What you actually say when you are bored is that none of the options you have available are meaningful to you. The problem in our situation is that usually I have options that I can do alone at home and some external options. Now, a lot of external options are cut off. I cannot go out to bars, I cannot go meet my friends, chill at the lake, have a barbecue, go to a party, invite my friends over for my birthday. All of those options are cut off, so I'm stuck with the options that I have alone in my room, basically. That's the one thing we could switch, basically focus actively on the options that we have available and try to find meaning in those options. Why? We are all social animals, basically, and we are mostly defined by our social function. If you go to a party, you never ask someone, "What's your concept of happiness? Do you want to rebuild communism?" You know what I mean. Why do we define ourselves over our function we have in society? It gives us the certainty of planning. Looking at that, basically I'm stuck at home with options that I don't find meaningful. The problem in that situation is that our mental capacity is set free because we do not focus our energy on a specific task, which then leads to self-reflection and a realization of time itself. So boredom, in essence, extends the subjective perception of time. Basically, that's why 5 minutes bored feel like an hour. Hey Patrick, do you have a cool quote? Yes, Einstein. If you sit with a beautiful girl for 1 hour, it feels like 5 minutes. And if you sit on a hot stove for 5 minutes, it feels like an hour. Relativity of time. But the bigger issue that I see in that situation, and that's where I get the should out of what you should do, is that boredom expands the perception of time. So in a situation where you're isolated, you don't want to have that extended, especially when it comes up later with loneliness and anxiety. Those feelings are not going very well with an extended perception of time. The basic advice you get from everybody is make a routine. How can you make a routine, basically? Look at the options you have available and try to find a meaningful one that you can go after or create new ones. Oh my god, I forgot to mention something. When I recorded this video this morning, I forgot to mention that one thing that could also help a lot during the routine is if you set yourself small, achievable, obtainable goals, so you have like these moments of achievements and with it like satisfaction basically that can come out of it. For example, just read 10-20 pages a day or something and really make those little achievements part of the routine, and it really feels better afterwards. So back to the video. The routine basically doesn't have to be productive. I mean, that's a very capitalistic approach to say like, oh, this is the time you should improve on yourself, or this is the time to learn new skills. Listen to your own feelings and basically embrace them. If you're feeling tired, sleep. And it's fine, basically, to just watch Netflix all day or play video games, for example. I cannot go out, I'll play this dino video game a lot. So here are some screenshots, which you definitely need to see because I built a new house in it. So, do the approach of what you want to do internally and on a positive note, in the sense that, hey, this is something I want to do, this is something I'm interested in, what I want to get into. This situation is an emergency, which is a lot of pressure anyways, and it's not a race on who can improve the most. The only thing that it does is create peer pressure, which is another negative emotion that we do not need in an emergency situation. Hopefully, once you establish a routine that you can do, however relaxed it is, it helps you just to, how can you say, counterbalance the extension of time. And if you can focus on something, like the whole time period, this emergency situation we're in is gonna go by faster. Pro tip, add vanilla syrup to your coffee. It's amazing. Terminology time with Patrick. If we try to define loneliness, you could define it as the perception of a loss or weakening of the social connections we have to others. Basically, it's the perception that our relationships are breaking apart. What it does is that it causes social pain, which is there to basically trigger us and motivate us to restore and fix those broken relationships so that we are basically back into our peer group. I am alone in my room, but I am not lonely, because the basic easy advice on how to counterbalance loneliness is to search for active and positive way to re-establish those connections. Basically, video calls. If you have a routine and, for example, Friday nights you cannot go to a bar, make a video call with your friends online and basically just open a bottle of wine and talk about it, have fun, and do it in a responsible way though, especially in this emergency situation. The abuse of drugs in any form can have severe consequences, so do it in a rational and reasonable, responsive manner. you can really compare the social pain that you have from loneliness with physical pain, which causes a stress reaction in order to get us active. So let's go to the third part and go into the why you should have these meaningful connections. Terminology time with Patrick. So if we know that loneliness causes stress in order to get us active, let us try to define what stress is. A definition I like a lot about stress is basically your own estimate that you cannot fix a problem that is ahead of you with the resources you have available. Basically, it means that if you, for example, have an exam coming up and you have 3 months to practice, it's no problem, no pressure. But if you start a week before and you run to the library and the book is gone, you're feeling very stressed, and because you need to fix that situation. The difference I want to make between stress and anxiety, on the other hand, is that stress can also be, in a positive way, very activating in helping you stay focused on a specific task. If you're in a job interview, if you hold a presentation, if, for example, when I'm filming a moment that is only there one time, I'm very stressed, but in a positive way, it helps me to focus. Anxiety, on the other hand, if you try to define it, you could say it's the reoccurring intrusive thought of an impending negative event. That negative event that we are thinking about in our situation is death, which is a very serious event that I try to avoid, like everybody else. Not just for myself, but also for my friends and family. The issue in our situation when we're isolated back at home is that there's nothing we can do about it, which is a very problematic situation if we are alone at home and trying to create these typical for anxiety what-if scenarios in order to fix the situation. What does it mean? We are stressed, basically, to get us active. Anxiety, we're basically thinking over that negative event and what we can do about it. If we try to make what-if scenarios and try to plan on how to fix the situation, the only source of information about it from the outside world is through technology. Let me try to give you an example on how the news and social media work these days.
No matter what you do, it's gonna work because we're gonna die.
Try that for 24 hours and just look at how you feel afterwards. The point is not to neglect and deny anything that's out there. The point is limit your exposure and your reminder on the impending negative event. That's why the advice is out there to limit your exposure to social media, because the only thing it does is reminding you on a situation that you cannot fix, which doesn't help anybody. That's one advice, to limit your exposure to news and social media. And the other advice, very important, is to get news and information from trusted sources, because we are in a state of a lot of uncertainty. And what we want to do is being certain and able to plan and expect on what's to come. The moment we go to trusted sources, we actually get facts. And as always, facts minimize fears. If you don't have the facts, you can make all these crazy scenarios, but if you know, hey, these are the models, these are the predictions, and it really helps you to find more security and know basically what's going to happen in the future and what you can expect. For me personally, over the last month when I was working on this video and I was reading like models basically and predictions on how long this is going to take, in the beginning I was really stressed out and felt really anxious about it, but like after a while I got used to the idea, and then okay, like what can you do about it, like because then you're suddenly settled and then you can look at the positive parts of, hey, what can I do? And this is, for example, where I think is the third should, that you should inform yourself from the official sources, so you basically can expect of what's to come. And this planning security also lowers your level of anxiety as well. When you stop reminding yourself every 5 minutes that everybody's going to die and the world is ending, it really helps on lowering the levels of anxiety. Basically, my appeal as well to everybody, especially the men out there, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to cry about in that situation. It's okay to feel anxious and helpless, basically. And the earlier we embrace those emotions and try to find positive ways on how we can deal with them instead of neglecting how we feel, the easier it is that we can like get through this situation in a healthy way as much as possible. Also, maybe as a last aspect, which is a very important thing, is that if you are stuck in an abusive relationship, there is help out there. You can get in touch with people in a subtle way as well to get out of these abusive relationships in the situation, because domestic violence is a real issue. So if we summarize everything, in the end, boredom, basically, if you try to get a routine, do it with things you want to do internally, like that are motivated by yourself, in order to shrink the amount of time, just that you can go through it faster. And the moment you focus on something positive, that you can start drawing, start watching movies, like what you want to do, and it's not the time for peer pressure. Second, loneliness. Try to find active ways on reconnecting to your friends, because if loneliness tells you you are losing the connections, try to find ways to re-establish those connections. And with anxiety, limit your exposure to the negative reminder, which is social media and news, and also get information from the trusted sources, because again, facts minimize fears. So basically, I think this is where I want to end this video, that you can focus on the things you can control and embrace those feelings, those emotions, and don't try to suppress them. I hope that we're gonna see us again soon when all this stuff is over, and here you can also find a whole list of all the links and papers I used for this video, as well as other links to more information and some of the sites that I use to stay informed, and also a list of more places where you can get help. So I hope this video is helpful. Please leave a comment and let me know what you think about it, and if you want maybe that I make more of this, and really hope it helps. So in that sense, bye!